if you don't mind, we can continue with the second presentation for today. And I'm going to be the presenter. It's a joint work with another PhD student we have at Cpop, Silvio Patricio, and it's about mortality regularities in a dependent continuous risk setting. And let me take immediately the bull by the horns. So I hope this updates quickly. Okay, because it was there on my computer. So suppose we have n competing risks, H1, H2, and so on, Hn. So the random variables that are associated with them are potential lifetimes if only one of these risks acts at a time. So in the absence of all others. So these are things that we do not observe. But what we observe is the minimum of these random variables. So this is the actual observed lifetime. So the risks are competing among each other, and the one that strikes first is the one that determines the lifetime of an individual. And if these things are independent, it is quite straightforward to derive that the hazard of t here is just the sum of these hazards above. And the other way around. If a model has additive risks, then each of these additive risks corresponds to, well, a random variable that describes a competing risk. But it turns out that this very straightforward result in an independent risk setting also holds when these things are not necessarily independent. And to my dismay, this has been known for about 50 years. So the papers that derive this are from the mid-70s. And it's important that regardless whether the competing risks are dependent or independent, a competing risk model is simply an additive risk model. What Silvio and I added to this discussion, and this is a paper in progress we put in the project folder, and in 10/17 today I received a message from Silvio that it's now accepted. So it's something freshly accepted. We just show that all additive models can be represented as mixtures. So the density of lifetimes of deaths is a mixture of densities by each of the risks, I. But what is the difference between the GIs and the FIs? The difference is that this is the density of deaths from this risk in the absence of all others. Whereas here, this is the density of deaths from risk I when this risk competed with all other n-1 risks. So, yeah, just some terminology. This is the density and the prevalence of deaths from risk I at age X. And what are the benefits? I already said one of them, that additive risk models are competing risk models whereby
it was not changing on the screen.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, just tell me, because on my screen it changes quickly and it takes some time to get there. So, yeah. Additive risk models are competing risk models whereby the competing risks are not necessarily independent. So this is great, because in mortality we have a lot of additive risk models. And then if we estimate an additive risk model, we can easily compute the contributions of each risk to the overall share of deaths. So if I get back to this slide, so we can calculate. I didn't include a lot of formulas, but The GIs can be calculated by the FIs. But you can also do the other way around. And this is very important when we look at causes of death, because this is what we observe. These are the different causes, the deaths by different causes. But if we want to check whether these causes are independent or not, we have to reconstruct these. So we have to solve some integral equations that we do with some numerical methods. So I put a double arrow here because assuming this, you get that, and the other way around. But also, estimating an additive model, well, you can reconstruct all these. So, in the paper that I just mentioned, we also show that you can calculate a lot of different mortality indicators. Remaining life expectancy, the model age at death, also the age at which a certain risk starts prevailing over the others, and so on and so forth. So in mortality research, we have a lot of parametric additive risk models, and not exclusively, these are all parametric, all Macon parametric models. And what are the Macon parametric models? We have an age-independent risk C, an exponential distributed risk. This is the Macon term, plus something that is capturing biological processes at early or late ages of life. And if you look at the Seiler model, well, this term capturing infant mortality is capturing biological processes at early ages. And the exponential increase in the death rates, of course, is capturing the aging, the senescence part. So basically, the candidates for senescence are two. Either rates increase exponentially, or they increase logistically in an S shape. And the difference between these three models is that just the asymptotic level is different. The canister model is the least flexible. It has an asymptote of 1, and this is the model that the human mortality database is using. Whereas the Beard and the gamma comforts, well, level off Beard at 1 over K, and this one at B over gamma. So the most flexible, at least in my view, is the gamma comforts model, because the leveling off is modulated by 2 parameters. And well, in a competing risk setting, we can think of this as, well, either the biological process strikes first or the extrinsic risk. This is when that occurs. So there are a lot of additive risk mortality models, and of course, I didn't mention the Hellingman-Pollard model, which also models the hump of mortality at middle ages. And Giancarlo has a very nice article with Adriano Ramon, how you can model this in a non-parametric setting. But we came across a model in 2015 by Jim Bopel and one of his PhD students, Olin Vista. They called it the Kappa-Gompertz model. And what we liked about this model is that this term is capturing an interaction between acting recklessly, acting risky, and the price you pay for this. So the inclination to act risky decreases with age, right? When you're in your 20s, 30s, you're much wilder than when you are a little bit older, especially when you're in your 70s, 80s. But if you act risky, the price you pay at 30 is much higher than the price you pay at age 80. So just think about this. You want to do some works on your roof, on the roof of your house, and you fall from the ladder. If you're 30, okay, nothing happened. If you're 80, well, the damage is very high. So here, this is the interaction they aimed at. The problem was that statistically, this model cannot be identified. You cannot disentangle these two effects. So the negative kappa is your inclination to act risky with age. And the B is capturing your increasing risk, the increasing price you pay for taking this risk. So we decided to formulate the model in such a way that we can estimate it. So suppose the hazard, the risk of dying, is additive, and we have those three components. The first one is the dying from old age, the senescent risk, and again, we picked up the gamma Gompertz one just because it is the most flexible out of those things. So if gamma is 0, we get the exponential increase. So it also incorporates this exponential option. And then, well, this one is the Macon term. We call it just vaguely the non-aging related hazard. So it's a general background hazard that can happen to you. So if there is a tsunami or there is some car, some accident, you are unintentionally involved. This is just a general risk from nowhere. But the third one is you're not dying of old age, but you're dying because of your risky behavior, your reckless behavior. So the price that you're paying is your senescent risk, well, modulated by some constant. And then we picked up just the survival function to capture this decreasing tendency of acting risky. And just to avoid infant mortality, we started from age 10. Our input data are death counts and exposures, and our assumption is the Poisson assumption about the death counts. We tried also several other options here, namely the Bell distribution, just to control for possible over-dispersion, because in the Poisson setting, the mean and the variance are the same, and data are over-dispersed. But changing the Poisson to a Bell assumption didn't change our findings at all. And then we use a Bayesian procedure with inverse gamma priors. So without going into technicalities, we have a paper published on this. And the idea is that, well, this model has 3 parameters here, 4, and depending on, 5, and depending on the type of survival function we pick up to 7. So if we want to fit this model to overall mortality, it's fine. But if we want to fit it to cause of death data, where we have, what is this, like 17, 18 points with 7 parameters, well, it's a little bit tricky. So we decided to go for a Bayesian estimation procedure here. And our first step was to choose an appropriate survival function. So we tried different candidates, and the one, well, compared the goodness of fit according to different loss functions, and the winner was the skew normal distribution. So this is the distribution we picked up for our risk inclination function. And then we estimated 3 parts of mortality. So we did this for overall mortality to disentangle senescent mortality from all non-senescent components. So this was a completely different purpose. But for the purpose of this project, we fitted it to cause of death data. Why? Because we wanted to see what the cause of death composition of each component is. So if we're talking about the Macon component, what cause of death would you expect there to be leading? External causes, right? This is this. And also, I'll show you in a second. So,
wait, because I think you change base, not changing.
Okay. Okay. So we took a data set that you know very well, French females, years 2000 to 2015 from the human cause of death database. And then this is how the three components look. The black curve is the overall fit of the model. The green part, the constant thing, is the Macomb term. The blue curve is the senescent mortality, and the red bell-shaped thing is the behavior-related component. And this is for the year 2000, and I prepared here also for the others. So there are some years in which the Bayesian model is not working very well, and we're working on it. So here, this is a typical year. So this is a fine year, but there are years in which this doesn't work very well. So these are all causes combined. And then here are all the major causes of death. And in these columns, I have put the percentage of converging Monte Carlo chains, Markov chain, MCMC chains, when we apply the Bayesian procedure. So if here we have a 1, this means that in all cases our procedure converged. But if we have a number that is smaller than 1, there were some chains that did not converge. And these are usually causes with either a small number of cases or with a age trajectory that is just not captured well by this model. And a very good example are the external causes. So if you look at this, well, look at this. It's just not, just the model is not getting this very well in some years. And look, this is the behavior-related component. This is something unrealistic. So when I'm showing these results, you have to bear in mind that we're still working on the Bayesian procedure so that we get consistent results over time, given that there are no disruptions in the data. So if you're interested in any of these causes of death, in the discussion part, I can show you the different patterns. Maybe one of the interesting cases are the infectious diseases. So here all Markov chains converge, so our results are stable and credible, and this is how the behavioral component looks like. So it's a bell-shaped thing centered around age 40 in the year 2000. And if you go in time to this, this is very, I don't know how fast this is going to be. This red bell-shaped thing is moving to older ages. And when it stops at 2015, it is centered around age 55 or something. So in 2000, it was at age 40. 15 years later, it was at age 15 years later. So this should be some cohort effect that we see. So the other parts are not changing a lot, the senescent and the Macomb part, but we see a change in this, a cohort change. So if we take a look at the composition of this over time, we might get insight why this is happening.
Sorry, this is which data? US? No.
This is France.
Yes, sorry.
This is France, the years 2000 to 2015. And again, we promised to work with different data, but we're waiting for that.
Yeah.
So we're in the stage of testing different methodologies how to.
The red one is behavioral, right?
Yes, the red one is the behavioral one. Yes.
Why don't you have the accident count? This is fever. No, fever. Yeah, this
Schema.
But this schema was, here is the accident hump.
Yeah, you hardly see that
Okay,
for female in 2010.
okay, because I guess if you're working with male, which are more pronounced
Yeah,
hump,
yeah. Well,
yeah, maybe your red would be skewed completely maybe on the, no, around that.
Yes. Yeah. So we also have the results for males, but I'm not presenting them right now. Yeah. But for males, you're right, just because the accident hump is more pronounced, the estimates of the red thing, so the behavior-related component are much more stable. Yes.
And for the female, for the overall mortality,
Yes.
is there any reason why on the infectious disease we have a plateau between, I think, 40 50?
But this is for the HIV, maybe, no? Or what is this?
Could be the HIV cohort. I don't know, to be honest, which cohorts were mostly affected.
In
But
2000 is already,
it's like,
we already had that.
so this is around 50 something.
So
Yeah.
it's
So this is
finished the HIV here, at least in
50,
France.
70 cohorts, these cohorts, is this?
So that, my question, well,
Yeah.
we can keep it for the discussions, sorry.
No,
No,
we
that's-
should get.
You know, like, it's just question of label, because then what you call behavior, then at least in the infectious, you could call it cohort effect.
Mhm.
So it's, I don't know how much you could attach the label behavior to the red curve in that case. It's just that you are having an extra curve and an extra parameters to capture cohort effect that straight line plus the C component, or the gamma gombas plus the C component, are not able to capture. And they are stable over time, and then you have on top of that something that is changing over cohort that has nothing to do with behavior, but it's more like a cohort effect. That's how you pointed out. So it's just question of label, but
Yeah,
that's
in this case, I agree with you.
Yeah.
But whether it's behavior or not,
there is something more than just the C and the gamma gombas.
No, whether it's behavior or not, we do not know. But we are modeling it as if this were a behavioral thing. So you're exposed to a general risk of dying that can be probably higher if you act risky, but your inclination to act risky decreases with age. So this is what we call the behavioral component. And I mean, you cannot, we don't have exact data to
No.
check whether someone acted risky or not, but like in the case of infectious diseases, yes, it is capturing a cohort effect. But in the case of, I don't know, just pick up something else.
Plasma, you should have cohort effect also.
So,
Plasma, probably
so
with smoking.
yeah, neoplasms,
That's okay.
yeah. I don't think.
And it's really small, the C here, so it's e
Yes.
to the minus 12.
Yeah.
Which is obvious, because I mean, it's.
Yeah. But what we find very interesting
Well,
is
not
that if you control for the two non-senescent components, the red one, the behavior related, and the green one, which is hardly to be seen here, the external hazard, these blue patterns are quite identical over all ages. So if you control for these two things, the senescent part is more or less the same.
Over time.
Over time, yes. So which means that if we understand how the red and the green components behave over time, we will understand how the overall mortality is changing over time, because this thing is more or less stable.
You mean within the host or between the hosts?
It's both within the causes and also for overall mortality. So what we started with Silvio was looking at overall mortality, because we're looking for a stable estimate of senescent mortality. And we saw that if we isolate these two components, the overall mortality senescent is quite stable. And we saw also this when we looked at specific causes of death. So this is something that to me is what I would call a regularity, a word in the title of this presentation. So if we look at the overall mortality, so this is the aging component, what was blue on the graph, this is the red thing, the behavioral, and this is the green. So the Macomb term is basically capturing the external causes of death. Partially diseases of the nervous system, partially mental, partially I don't know, infectious, but these are small shares. So the biggest proportion of diseases in the Macomb term are the external causes of death. For the senescent component, so I'll get back to this. There is some, and you saw it already in the neoplasms. We have some problems estimating the behavioral component or neoplasms between 2002 and 2007. So we have some underestimation of the aging component at the expense of this behavioral. So this is something that we have to work on. But even like this, what you can see from the aging component is that the shares of deaths by cause are more or less the same over time. Okay, the one that is causing this reallocation of deaths is cancer, the neoplasms. But we're not sure whether this is a real effect or there is just something. Yeah.
This is from which age?
This is from age 10 onwards. This is all ages combined.
So then here you have the proportion, but actually the terms of strength or level, that's pretty different, no? Because then the aging component, at least at higher ages, is with the order of magnitude higher than the senescence and the behavior.
Yes.
So it's just to see the share, let's say here.
Yeah. This is for overall. And then at age 10, how this looks.
Okay, then it's
At age 10, well, the Macomb component is comprised again predominantly of external causes, but also some of the nervous system, other respiratory, infectious, skin. The behavior component, well, it is basically either external or what is this? This should be heart, which is or infectious, yeah. But the senescent component here are mostly cancers. Okay, so at age 10, you're not dying of old age, but you're dying because of cancer. And at this age, it is also important to have in mind what the proportion of deaths by each of these causes is. So if I go to the next graph, these are the deaths at age 10.
that's the
So-
level I was.
So whatever we get for the behavioral component, this is not very informative because this is just noise. There are hardly any behavioral deaths here. So we should always look at these, having in mind, like, that's due to which of the three components happen at this age. And we can see that, well, at age 15, the share of like external causes increases. It will increase also for 20. Again, this is not very informative still. And at this age, like you're not dying because you're old, you're dying because of cancers. This is the senescent component. So this is what happens at age 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. And maybe I should stop here at 35. So the behavioral component, so of course you can run into an accident, but also your behavior can influence like infectious diseases. And this, I don't know how well you see it, but this part for the infectious diseases is thinning out and disappearing, this cohort effect. You also have a share of mental disease deaths, and you also have some details. And at age 35, this is the share of deaths. Okay, so you have quite a high share of deaths that are behavior related, and the external are the majority at this stage. And then when you stop acting as risky as you used to, well, these two components, I mean, no matter what you see here, this becomes less and less important, and we see like the typical pattern of cause of death composition. So it's dominated by neoplasms, heart diseases, respiratory diseases, and so on and so forth. So at age 75, you can already see something that we already discussed, that data quality becomes lower, and also at age 75, it's not so important. Again, I would like to turn your attention to this mismatch in the period between 2002 and 2007. So we are not sure whether this is real coming from the data or coming from the Bayesian method where this doesn't converge. So we're not sure whether this is real. So it's this missing part. Okay, and again, at age 80 and 90, so sorry. At the other stages, this is just sideways. Again, what I find really important is that the shares of deaths by cause in the aging component, especially after a certain age. So this is age 95. Okay, here the credibility is not very high. And again, we don't know what is happening here, but the share of deaths by cause in the aging component is more or less constant. And this is a regularity that we might want to take into account when we forecast mortality. So to forecast mortality by component, okay? And forecasting this part will be quite stable with not so much variability, and the variability will come from. So I will show one last graph before I conclude, and here, okay, I'm sorry for this. Here I changed the colors. So the red now is the aging component. The green, this one is the behavior-related component, and the blue one is the Macon term, the exogenous risk, the external risk component. So I was interested in seeing whether there are some causes of death that can be attributed to the aging process. So these causes are senescent. These causes are behavior related. And these causes are, yeah, it's very hard to tell, of course, but if you look at the overall mortality, look at this, like the diseases of the circulatory system. So the aging component, the red one, is heavily dominating. Diseases of the digestive system, again, the aging component heavily dominates, but also the behavioral component is important, right? It's very important for healthy habits. And you can also see this partially, but not so well pronounced for diseases of the endocrine system, other respiratory diseases. And so diseases that are dominated by something else than the aging component. The external deaths, of course, and the blue thing here is the makeup death. We saw it in the previous heat maps. So we can again do this by age. So starting at different ages, and you can see that it is first the makeup and the behavior-related components that dominate at age 95. Of course, here variability in the data is not very high, but let's get back to 70. Almost all deaths are senescent, old age, and the other components are just marginally contributing. Again, this is this cancer hump attributed to the behavior-related mortality that we don't know why it's there. And this is the external causes. There is always an interplay between the makeup and the aging. So, to conclude, we saw that competing risk models are actually additive risk models. So in an additive risk setting, we can account for competing risks. Being able to represent these models as mixtures, we can identify the contributions of each component. So we use this property to fit a model consisting of three competing risks: aging-related, behavior-related, and exogenous, external risk, the makeup term. And we try to characterize the distribution of deaths for the subpopulations characterized by these risks. So what we want to do as further steps is the following. So number one, as I showed you in the beginning of the presentation, we have these FIs and GIs, the densities of deaths due to different conditions. We can recalculate one from the others. So we would like to calculate the shares of deaths by cause of death if the risks were independent. And in this way, get another measure of association, how highly associated the different causes of deaths are. So this is number one. And number two, I already mentioned, is to use the cause of death structure of the three components to forecast mortality by cause of death, well, component-wise. So these are the two next steps we would like to do. And I'm open to discussion.
Just a comment on your last statement,
Yeah.
coming to the forecast part.
Sure.
I see a big challenge in maybe the forecasting of the behavior part, which seems a bit more random, but less regular than the two previous one,
Yes.
isn't it? I mean, can you confirm that maybe the...
Absolutely. And I think one of the most important slides is this one. It will now appear. So we want to make sure that our method works well for all the years and all the causes. because there are some years and some causes with very erratic patterns with a lot of, with a very small number of observations. And there the MCMC crashes. And we tried different things, that there are some options how to circumvent this, but we want first to have a much more stable estimate of this behavior-related mortality component. So before getting into forecasting, of course, we would like to stabilize this.
Because you fit each year independently, or?
It was one of the suggestions I was having in mind.
Yeah.
So to image that your parameters are not year specific, but
Yes.
there are curves over years, and therefore the fit should be done over the whole surface. That could make it more stable, the estimates. That could be
Sure. This is
so. Yeah.
This is definitely something we will check, at least if it makes it more stable. Yes, for sure.
Have you also tried our other distributions? I was a bit surprised to see, for example, for the behavioral, that in some cases it starts at 40 only. So the impact, I would have expected, for example, that you have a bit more impact on younger ages as well. So maybe the distribution is not.
That's true. Like here, everything before age 25, 30 or something, it tells you that this is just the make and turn, this background hazard, and like intuitively it's not. So again, this is something that Jana mentioned to me some time ago. She was not believing that this is exactly behavior related, because I mean I just call it behavior related because of this trade-off in the functional form I use to model this. Just because of this, but
the cohort effect. It doesn't fit into that component. That some risks are much more owned by certain cohorts.
Yeah, that's true. So this component is capturing, apart from everything else, also the cohort effects, but it is not capturing the cohort effects only.
Yeah. But the
I mean,
behavior is a bit more
any deviation from the
Would it be like much more stable to use US data where you have single year of age? Because now what I see here, you have like around 20 data points and 19 data points, and you have like 7 parameters.
Yes.
So that's pretty challenge in terms of identificability. So if you could have like single year of age, that would be much more stable, at least in terms of NP proportions.
So we did this for the US, and we also did this for overall mortality.
Yeah.
Again, single.
But yeah, in that case, that would be more stable.
And I wanted to show you how this looks in a much more challenging setup, where you have a small number of data points, because like one of the questions that we're getting all the time is like, why we're using these Bayesian procedures, especially for like single years of age, where you have like maximum likelihood, you have the p-splines, your something that you embellished over the years. People are asking us, well, why this? Why this Bayesian? And if you compare it with maximum likelihood for like single years, it's the difference.
You get more data.
Exactly, but exactly in these cases, so when you have data by single years of age, you know what to do. When you don't, when you want to compare like all countries from the human cause of death database,
then you don't have single year of age.
Yeah. So this is still producing something quite stable. This is what I wanted to.
I see Jim that raised the hand.
Yeah, Jim.
Yeah, I was wondering whether this thing that you're interpreting as behavioral is actually a selection process. Supposing that curve was a selection against single men, and and it's showing you how strong that importance of selection is by age.
Against single men.
Yeah.
Why single men, Jim?
Well, because they have higher mortality, they're contributing to the heterogeneity in the risk groups.
But these are data for females.
Yeah, but I mean, in principle, there's a selection process against against heterogeneity in this, I would have thought.
Okay. I don't know if I have to be honest, but I thought that we're capturing the selection process in the senescent component, in the gamma Gompertz. So, to be honest, I don't know. I have to think about it. But I was thinking that we're capturing the selection effects here. That's why I chose this functional form for the senescent component.
And may I ask another
Yes,
question?
sure.
You talk about this SX as a way of, capturing the decreasing reckless behavior over age, and then you have somehow selected different possible distributions. This distribution depends on parameters, and why there should be an S of X, because it has to go from 1 to 0. It can be any monotonically decreasing function, or and I see some identifiability problem also in that. Maybe that you hide a bit by forcing the S of X being from 1 to 0. But then if you assume that any behavior can be just monotonically decreased, then you raise the possibility of having many more other functions there with a lot of more identifiability problem. Am I right in thinking about that? So it's also a way of making more robust, putting the S of X there.
Yeah. Yes. This is one thing. And then we have this eta, this scaling parameter, so that it does not decrease necessarily from 1 to 0, but from anything to 0. Whether it should decrease to 0, whether this is a restriction, I don't know. I don't know. But this is decreasing to 0 asymptotically.
Yeah, sure.
So in the age range that we're looking at, it might be just monotonically decreasing, but not.
Yeah, and I see the issue in the age of I in both terms. That where the issue could come, but I don't see. That's the way you construct it, so that's the idea behind it. And one test that you could do is like check the correlation between the parameters you have estimated.
Yes.
To see which one are playing the role in the convergence issues. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we have this. Yeah. We have this.
Yeah.
Any more comments?
Are there any more comments online?
Okay, so.
Yes, Matthias?
Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
That's perfect. Thank you for a very nice talk. I was just wondering, did you show any pictures of these G functions? Did I miss those?
No, I didn't show them here. No. But if I had to show them, I would have shown something like this, like these plots, but just with the shares of the 3 components. So I don't know if I have something to show here. Maybe this one.
Because I was also thinking about these selection effects, and if you were working with these G functions, I guess you could kind of perhaps see the selection effects with respect to the G's. But...
Can you see this? So This is just overall mortality after age 30. And this is, I think, US data where we have the single years of age. And you can see like these three components, these are the G's. So here, I'm afraid I have a different coloring again. So this thing here, the blue thing is the behavior-related component. This is the external component, and this is the senescent component.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I have those. And if I reconstruct this by 5-year age groups, this looks much worse. So maybe I'll still have a graph for this. But yeah, maybe you can contact me by email and we can continue because
Yes.
we're running over time. But yeah, this thing is less stable when we use 5-year age groups, and for some causes of death like this, especially the green chunk looks very weird.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So if there are no more questions, let's have a lunch break, and we'll continue afterwards with other exciting presentations. Thank you.
Thank you.
The time,
What time we are here?
What time are we back?
are we back for, especially for the people in,
Quarter to two.
quarter to two?
1:45
Okay.
is the next.
No, not for me, but for the people in the,
Yeah.
online.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys, and we will connect through a different link this afternoon. Thank you.
Okay, so we continue at 1:45, and there is a different link, right?
Yeah.
Okay.